So now that you have been a risk taker all your life, so how important and necessary do you think it is for an organization to take a risk?
You see, organization is what? Organization is a group of people with a common vision, shared goals,
Yes. Yes.
and working towards accomplishing those
Yes.
goals.
Yes.
So it's not very different from a person. But an organization has to and must and needs to take risks to succeed. Now, they could be calculated risks. They could be conservative in nature. They don't always need to be drastic. And some may choose a different path, a low risk approach.
Right.
There are companies that do inorganically very, very quickly, they scale. There are companies that look for investment very early and they scale very quickly. And that's their model and that's their approach and that's what they want to do. So they have a certain appetite for risk and they leverage that and with, great rewards. Because risk reward, we all know is, it's directly, very, very closely connected. Then there are others that choose a more organic way of growth. They stick to growing themselves through an organic approach. So they don't go in for acquisitions. So there's no big great threats to their culture. They don't go in for increased market share very, very quickly. But they plan, they prepare, and they look at what, their appetite for growth is commensurate with their appetite for risk. But if the appetite isn't there, there is no growth any which way.
Right.
Now, how big the appetite is and how large, therefore, the risk is that you're going to take, or how huge the risk is, or how, how bold it is, would be determined again by, I would imagine, not always just an individual that's doing it, but certainly led by a founder, and the entrepreneur really is. Entrepreneurs are risk takers.
Right.
And as you develop into organizations and enterprises have teams, have governing councils, have committees, have boards, they are accountable. And they collectively determine how much risk is appropriate for an organization.
Right.
But risk is there, you've got to take it.
Right.
You cannot operate, function, grow, and you cannot sustain where you are without taking a risk.
Right.
It's basic, isn't it?
Right. So, ma'am, what sort of a risk taker are you? Calculated risk, or you just go with the flow?
I would say I do both.
Okay.
So I do both, and it depends on. It's a combination of where my strengths may lie, my individual strengths, how deep the knowledge of the domain that I'm taking the risk in is, how well informed I am, how well connected I am and collaborative I am with others there, and how well they have and that environment have responded to risk taking.
Right.
So I would do that.
Right.
So I wouldn't just say, I'm a risk taker, I'm going to do that. So I wouldn't do that. But there are other times when I would be willing to risk it all to accomplish something. Because there also it's usually a combination of data driven and I do function through instinct as well.
Okay.
I look for feedback. I look for feedback in everything. I look for feedback, oral, verbal, a look, a gesture. I am all the time looking for feedback.
Right.
And that also determines. But, am I an aggressive risk taker by nature? Limited to myself, I am. So I am the kind who would get up and say, why is it that I can't climb Everest? It's there. Why should you do it? Because it's there. I should. Come on. And I'll, enthuse 3-4 people around me and they'll be as crazy as I am and we'll do it.
Yes.
But will I lead others down that path as an organization? I mean, absolutely not. Absolutely not. So the long answer to your short question, I would think I would take a calculated risk. I would inform myself really well, but I do have an appetite for risk. I have a huge appetite for success.
Right.
And I think the
Yes.
twain shall always remain
Yes.
forever married.
Yes. Yes, they would.
Tightly coupled.